Hello all, in this video we are going to speak about the tone and the atmosphere. Tone and atmosphere actually have to do with the feelings that you may find in a text. What is the difference between them? Difference is very easy. The tone is the reflection of the author's attitude through his work or her work. Okay, that is it is the feelings that are found in the text. You can easily find or understand the feelings of the author through the choice of their words, through what happens to the characters, okay? Through the main events that may happen to the character, through the depiction of the character, you can understand whether the author actually likes or hates the character. Do they feel sympathy for them? Do they feel pity? Are they angry with the character? Or are they angry with the events that are happening in the text, and so on. So, in order to understand the tone, you should ask yourself the question, if I was the author, how do I feel about these events? How do I feel about the characters I have just made? If I was the character, how do I feel about them? All right? After reading the text, ask yourself this question in order to answer the question of the tone. Remember, the tone is the feeling of the author, not the narrator. Okay? Earlier in the point of view, we have been speaking about the narrator, but now we are speaking of the tone of the author himself or herself. All right? So the feelings can be happiness, sadness, detachment, anger, irritation, and so on. Okay? So, in your opinion, how does the author feel about the narration? How do they feel about the actions, the events, the characters? Okay, and you can answer that question based on the events that happen to the characters, the development of the events, and the depiction of the events. Example in Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle, the author often refers to Rip as poor. Okay, he says poor Rip. And although Rip Van Winkle was very lazy in the story, uh, he is still depicted as a good man, as a kind-hearted man, and as someone who deserves all the sympathy. Here you can understand that the author actually feels sympathy and likes the character. Okay? Now, let's speak about the atmosphere. The atmosphere is the mood evoked by the work of art, that is, the background. It can be mystery and darkness in Hamlet, gloom in The Fall of the House of Usher, humor in the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and so on. One way to understand the atmosphere or to help yourselves in answering the question about the atmosphere, ask yourself the question, if I was a character, how do I feel inside the text? See the difference between the tone and the atmosphere. If you're speaking about the atmosphere, the tone, you should ask yourself the question, if I was the author, how do I feel about the text? But in the atmosphere, you have to be inside the text. You are not outside the text, okay? In the atmosphere, ask yourself the question, if I was the character, how do I feel inside the text? If I was Robinson Crusoe, how do I feel inside the text? And I am fighting the waves, okay? So the environment is dangerous. It can even be a cause of anxiety. It can be a source of melancholy and so on. Okay, it's dark. It's the protagonist was about to die. All right. If we would take let's say the Merchant of Venice, in the atmosphere would depend actually from one moment to another. But let's take the conversation of Shylock, in which he was speaking about the Jew and the reason why, the fact that all the Jews deserved a good living, just like any other Christian. The environment there was full of anger, but also full of sensitivity. Okay, so you could say the environment is composed of anger and sensitivity because you feel like Shylock was both angry but also hurt. He was affected by the things that were happening to him, and he felt like everyone around him was unfair. See that whatever your answer is in the atmosphere, you should always explain. Okay? In the tone, if you think that there is sadness or happiness in the text, always explain why. As I have explained in the beginning with Rip Van Winkle, I said I think that the author likes him and feels pity for him because he refers to him as poor Rip, because he makes him look like a good person although he was lazy. See, this was my argument to the answer. In the atmosphere, if I am talking about Shylock, I would say the atmosphere is full of anger and sensitivity. Why? Now, I think that it is full of anger and sensitivity because Shylock is both angry and hurt by the behaviors of the Christians towards him. He feels like everyone is hurting him on purpose. He feels like everyone is unfair to him, and this is why he speaks with such anger and with such emotion. Okay, so the atmosphere is the general feeling around you, around the character. In order to understand the atmosphere, or in order to speak about the atmosphere, ask yourself the question: what if I was a character? How do I feel inside the text? It is about the general environment of the text, the background of the text. Okay? Now, conclusion. Your essay must end with a conclusion. Okay? There has to be a conclusion in your essay. So, in the conclusion, you are free to speak about whatever you want. You can say what you think, but don't say I think. Yeah, I know this is an opposition. Okay? Now, you can recapitulate the most important aspects of the analysis if you want. Actually, in the conclusion, you are free to put whatever you want, but try to write a beautiful conclusion, okay? You can evaluate, assess the achievements of the author, whether he succeeded or she succeeded in conveying the theme, and you can provide or give your opinion. Now, while giving your opinion, do not use the personal pronouns I, we, you, my, your, myself, okay? Don't speak about yourself. Do not speak to the reader. Don't say you need courage to survive. If you are writing an essay, you don't say you need courage to survive, because in that case you will be speaking to me and you are telling me that I need courage to survive. Okay? You don't do that in an essay. You have to be impersonal. Do not use personal pronouns either to speak about yourself. Don't speak about yourself, and don't speak to the reader. Okay? That is, instead of saying we have, you should be saying there is. Okay? For example, if you're asked to provide figures of speech, you don't say that we have a figure of speech in this sentence. Instead, you should be saying there is a figure of speech in this sentence. Never say, in my opinion, I think. Okay? You should say directly what you think. Example, if you think that in Robinson Crusoe, the author has exaggerated in making Robinson Crusoe look like a victim, you don't say, in my opinion, Daniel Defoe has exaggerated in making Robinson Crusoe look like a victim. Okay? Don't say in my opinion. Don't say I think. Just put your idea directly. That is, you should be saying, finally, Daniel Defoe makes Robinson Crusoe look like a victim more than he has to do. He is, in fact, exaggerating in his representation. And of course, you have to say why. All right? Here, example, you don't say, I think that Mary Shelley was harsh to her character. Instead, you should be saying, finally, Mary Shelley was harsh to her character as she made him lose his entire relationships. Okay? So do not speak about yourself. Don't say, in my opinion. Don't say, I think. Do not use the personal pronouns I, you, me, and so on. And do not address the reader. You have to be entirely impersonal. Now, this is all for the method of the literary analysis. We're going to go back over all these concepts in class and discuss them more thoroughly, but you need to see them in order to have a good knowledge about them. The main thing that you have to bear in mind in your analysis is the language. Always care about the language. Always care about making your language as correct, as grammatically correct as possible. Avoid spelling mistakes and think about your grammar, okay? Think about your sentences and think about the verbs. Always ask yourself the question, do I know this tense? Yes, because a lot of students will use tenses that don't exist. Okay? Do I know this tense? If you have a verb in the third person, if in the present, you know that the verb must have an S. So do check if your verb has an S. All right? This is all for this video. I wish you the best of luck, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section.